Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sanguine review and deck list video. In this video we'll go over the list of relevant Sanguine based cards, and if you're just here just for the deck list, feel free to either fast forward to my explanation near the end of the video, or I do have a link in the description to where you can review the deck list and do like test hands and whatnot. So without further ado, let's get going. Obviously, always starting off with the obligatory warning of do what you want to do. This is just a kind of good start off point for if you want to build a deck. And actually, I guess this would probably be a good start off point for if you want to build a certain deck. And if you want to go the route of like a more slower control deck, you just basically don't build what I have built because it's basically the aggro version. But yeah, let's get on to the cards now. As always, we start off with the strong and core cards of the deck, because otherwise, what's the point of even building this deck? So you got Aragavi the Berserker, Valneric, Omen of Lust, Dark General, Demonium Clash Devil, Silverbolt Hunter, Disciple of Lust, Ambling Wraith, and Wings of Lust. And the two new cards from this set, from set 10, is Demonium Clash Devil and Silverbolt Hunter. Starting with Aragavi Berserker, he's a 3-cost 4/3 that on Fanfare you may pay 5 to deal 5 damage to each other follower on the field and give himself +2/+2 and Storm. That does include your own board, so just keep that in mind. And then the other effect, so the rest of this is not the Fanfare, because I've seen some people get confused that the whole thing is the Fanfare, but it's not. But the other effect is at the start of your end phase, if Sanguine's active for you, you can either choose an enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal it 3. Normally this will probably go to face unless you're dealing with some real existential threat, but yeah, the Sanguine in general is kind of meant to be more of an aggro build, so why not just, burn your opponent for a 3. If your opponent does play a quick during the end phase to try to kill Aragavi the Berserker, his effect will resolve first before your opponent does have a chance to use the quick, like a Surefire Bullet for example. So there's not a way for the opponent to essentially nullify the skill. It's going to go off regardless of what they do. Up next is Valneric, Omen of Lust. It's a 2-cost 2/2 Omen Demon that says while Sanguine's active for you, it has Storm, and on strike, you deal X damage to each enemy leader, and X equals the number of times your own leader has lost defense this turn. And an additional effect that almost never comes up, but if your leader's defense is exactly 7, not more, not less, but just exactly 7, she gets +2/+2. I've had this probably pop up like once in my life. That almost never happens. But the point is, you just kind of meant to self-ping yourself a bunch of times and then just swing with Storm with Valneric into your opponent. I just have the 3 different printed copy versions of her. She was printed as a L, an SL, and a U, so this is just kind of just to show you what the different arts are. Next up is Dark General, what I basically consider Valneric's older sister. She's a 4-cost 5/5 that on Fanfare, if you have Sanguine active, she has Storm, so you can just swing at your opponent for 5. So pretty straightforward card, just always been good. She was printed in set 1 and just still continues to be a good card. Finally, the first new card from set 10, Demonium Clash Devil. He's a 3-cost 2/3 with Bane and Drain is a rarely used keyword. But Fanfare, if Sanguine is active for you, give this follower +1/+1, Rush, and Assail, and on strike you deal each enemy leader damage equal to his attack. So the idea being, you trigger Sanguine, you play him, you crash him into an opponent follower, you get 3 life back from the Drain, because his life will be at 3 with the Sanguine active. And then at the same time, though, you're still able to deal 3 damage to your opponent. So it's just kind of both a board control, but also still keeping aggro. Yeah, I'd say basically right now he's just like a new staple. Whether you're going the more aggro route or the control route with Sanguine, I think either way he's just a staple. The second new card is Silverbolt Hunter, and unlike Demonium Clash Devil, he is not as special or crazy, but I still think he's pretty solid. He's a 1-cost 2/2 that on Fanfare you deal 1 damage to your leader, and last words, you select a follower on your own field and give it +1/+1. Do keep in mind that the Fanfare is only to yourself with Silverbolt Hunter. I know some people might read it as another like Disciple of Lust or Ambling Wraith, where it deals damage to both you and your opponent. opponent. But Silverbolt Hunter is unique in that case. But he's just a really good, goblin for the deck that you could arguably replace his skeleton fighter, but that's, up for debate. But he's just a nice addition in general to any Sanguine deck. I mean, he's a 1-cost trigger Sanguine, so, why not run him? Speaking of Ambling Wraith and Disciple of Lust, I've just kind of combined them here into the same slide, just because they're so close to each other that they're just basically the same card. But Ambling Wraith is a 1-cost 2/1 that on Fanfare you deal 1 damage to each leader, and Disciple of Lust is a 1-cost 1/1 that on Fanfare also deals 1 damage to each leader, but she also just has the added benefit of on strike you deal damage to each leader again. So basically the same card, just Ambling Wraith is just a one-time trigger where, if in theory Disciple of Lust could keep living, she can freely just keep triggering Sanguine for you. Last up is Wings of Lust. It's a 1-cost spell that says choose up to 2 of the following. You can either give a follower on your field rush and deal damage to yourself. You can select an enemy follower on the field and deal 2 damage and 1 damage to yourself, or you can deal damage to yourself and draw a card, discard a card. It's a great way, again, just to say, trigger Sanguine with 1 play point, but also because you do deal potentially up to 2 individual damage to yourself. Valneric can trigger twice to ping your opponent for 2. Well, she triggers once, but the damage will be 2 because 2 different instances of damage. Do keep in mind that you do have to choose in the order of the options here, and what I mean by that is you can't choose the first option of drawing a card and discard a card and then decide afterwards if you feel like dealing 2 damage to an enemy follower. You have to choose the ones in sequential order, so just keep that in mind. But otherwise, good card. And speaking of good cards, we're now onto the good card category. These are ones that are solid, but, kind of depending on what you want to do with the deck, you may or may not run them. Sanguine can kind of be built as either like a aggro or control build. So, if you're kind of going more control, there's less aggro to throw in the deck. Things like Razor Claw or Antelope Pelt Warrior. So that's why this is kind of like, mix and match of what you want to do section. So we'll start off with Moonrise Werewolf and its Evo, Antelope Pelt Warrior, Dark Feast Bat, Blood Moon, Demonium Punk Devil, Zealot of Lust, and Razor Claw. Up first is a new card from set 10, Moonrise Werewolf. It's a 1-cost 1/1 that evolves for 1, and on evolve it becomes a 2/2, and on evolve you select an enemy follower on the field, and if Sanguine's active for you, you deal 3 damage. Pretty good for really, I think, either kind of deck. Like, it's low enough to the ground that even early game in an aggro deck you can probably run her, and she also at least gives the benefit of dealing 3 damage to deal with even 2-cost followers that have 3 defense. So not a terrible card. I just wish it was a little more statted, but it's a 1-cost for 1 Evo. Like, what do you expect? 2 is probably pretty reasonable, I would imagine. So but she probably fits more in a control kind of Sanguine, but really I can kind of see her either way. Antelope Pelt Warrior is next. He's a 2-cost 3/3, so pretty overstated for only a 2-cost. Usually it's either 2 costs or 2 2s or 2 3s or 3 2s. So the fact that he's 3/3, that's pretty above average. And his effect is the downside of at the start of your main phase you deal damage to yourself, which, I mean, I guess that's technically a downside, but that's exactly what you want to do with Sanguine for free. So, oh no, I guess. And it's also a beast, which is relevant for later. But we'll get on to the next one because we're kind of in the beast category of cards. Dark Feast Bat is next. It's a 6-cost 4/4 that on Fanfare you can select an enemy follower on the field and deal 4 damage to it and its leader. And if Sanguine's active for you, you recover 3 play points. And like I mentioned a second ago, it is also a beast. Also, Moonrise Werewolf is a beast. I forgot to mention that, but this is kind of like, in my mind, the beast package. But the 3 play point recover can be nice if you decide to play Argali the Berserker as well. Just do more burn damage, so in theory you could do a total of 7 damage to your opponent, which is pretty good, I'd say. The only downside is 6 cost. I just wish it wasn't 6. 6 is pretty expensive. Kind of hard to justify a lot of times. I want to build a deck around this card, but I honestly haven't yet, just because it doesn't feel like what I want to do works well. But this probably would work better in a control deck, if anything. Up next is Blood Moon. It's a 2-cost amulet that on Fanfare you can search your deck for a beast follower, reveal it, and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And then you can act, tap, and bury the Blood Moon to deal damage to each leader. So great, trigger Sanguine. The cards that I've discussed in this video so far are the ones that are beasts that are actually like good to any certain degree. Those being Argavi the Berserker, Moonrise Werewolf, Antelope Pelt Warrior, and Dark Feast Bat. So Blood Moon is just great for grabbing any of those that you might need, and it's just a free Sanguine trigger. And it's pretty, because it's an amulet, amulets in general in the game are just pretty immune to destruction in general, so it's just a good consistent way of, it's like the button to trigger Sanguine, essentially the one-time button trigger for Sanguine. So I'd say for regardless of what kind of deck you're building, you're probably going to want Blood Moon. Also, it is the only way to shuffle Sanguine deck, so in case you kind of get a really top-end heavy starting hand, you can have Blood Moon shuffle your deck up, so then, you know, a lot of your top end pieces aren't just sitting at the bottom of the deck anymore. Moving on from the Beast Package cards is Demonium Punk Devil. He's a 2-cost 2/3 that has Ward, and you can act, give your leader -2 life, give this follower Bane, and you can only activate that once per turn. And then last words, you can give your leader 2 defense. As far as when I was trying to deck build, him and Antelope Pelt Warrior were kind of like, it felt like competing for the same spot personally. So, you know, you could probably do one or the other. I don't know if you'd have space for both, but that's just kind of where I was. That was where my head was trying to deck build. Also, keep in mind, even though you are subtracting 2 life from yourself, if you do that and then you play Valneric with Sanguine active, you're only going to deal 1 damage with Valneric, because it's for every instance of you losing life with Valneric, not the total amount of life lost. That's why Wings of Lust Valneric will deal 2 damage, because it's 2 separate damage instances of 1 damage, where Punk Devil is just 1 instance of 2 damage. So just kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, but Punk Devil does work well with Clash Devil. So, you know, there's certainly validity to if you want to run Punk Devil. Up next is the Zealot of Lust. It's a 2-cost 3/2 follower that has an act where you can give your leader -1 life to select an enemy follower on the field and deal it 1 damage, and you can activate that twice per turn. So again, because it's 2 separate instances of 1 damage, potentially, you know, if you do it twice, Valneric will, you know, deal 2 damage on her on strike. That's kind of, you know, what all the Lust cards kind of do is they kind of make it easy to trigger life loss multiple times, and she just has really good aggressive stats with being a 3/2. She helps clear out boards early game, so I mean she can fit in control decks really well, as well as aggro because of her well stats. So in my mind, she would also kind of fit in the kind of like strong / core cards if I had more space for for the option. Last is Razor Claw. It's a 2-cost spell that at quick you can deal 2 damage to your own leader, and you can select an enemy leader or enemy follower on the field and deal it 3. I would say 99% of the time, unless you're like staring down the barrel of like a huge threat that you just need to get rid of to potentially win the game, you usually just send the 3 to face. This, like Punk Devil, is the same instance of you only get 1 instance of damage done, even though it's 2 damage, so just kind of keep that in mind with Valneric. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's a pretty quick, quick, pun not intended, but it's a pretty quick way to kind of cut your opponent's life down real quick. With and because of the rules of the game, you can't even counter it, so, you know, it's just free 3 damage. Next up is the niche cards category. However, I would almost arguably say these are just good cards in general as well. So I try to kind of stick to, for time reasons, just try to stick to roughly 8 cards per category. But yeah, these cards are definitely not bad. No matter how you build Sanguine, it's really just what you want to do with the deck. But we'll start off with Kiss of Lust, Insatiable Desire, Fina, Dynamite Daredevil, Infernal Orchestration, Hellblaze Demon, Playful Necromancer, and our Evo, and Skeleton Fighter. So the first two I'm kind of combining together because they are pretty similar. So first is Kiss of Lust as a 2-cost spell. You can give your leader 2 defense and draw a card, and if Sanguine's active for you, you draw 2 instead. And then you have Insatiable Desire, which is a 2-cost that honestly you can ignore the top half, and if you want to read it, feel free to pause the video. But really all it does is you pay 2 to deal 2 damage to yourself and draw 2. So it's kind of like this dichotomy of like, do you want to, you know, heal 2 and draw a card, or potentially draw 2, or do you want to just deal 2 damage to yourself and draw 2? Kind of, I think it's really however you want to mix and match your payoffs with your cost cards. Both I could see use for, you know, whether you want it as the payoff or the trigger. So I kind of threw them in here. I'm not saying, if anything, people are probably going to stick more with Kiss of Lust, but you know, hey, who knows? It'd be also kind of funny to play Insatiable Desire for 2 to deal 2 damage to yourself and draw 2, only to turn back around and pay 2 to heal 2 with Kiss of Lust and draw 2. So that's kind of like a funny net life gain of 0, but paying 4 to draw 4. That's, you know, kind of funny, and I guess in theory you could do it. Next up is Fina, Dynamite Daredevil. She's a 2-cost 3/2 neutral follower that on Fanfare you can choose one of the following. You can either look at the top 5 cards of your deck and you can reveal a follower that costs 1 play point from among them and add it to your hand, or you can select an enemy follower on the field that costs 1 play point and destroy it. 99% of the time you're going to be doing the first effect because the deck runs probably at least 9 1-cost, if not maybe a couple more. Mine certainly does if you're probably going for a more of an aggro build. If you're going more control, probably have a few less, so you probably won't even run Fina. But yeah, I mean, she's pretty aggressively statted at 3/2. She did get printed originally as a gold in set 5 and then reprinted as a promo, so just different all art, but it's the same card. So yeah, this is probably more of a aggro Sanguine kind of card. Next up is Infernal Orchestration. It's a 1-cost spell that says deal damage to your leader, and the next time you put a follower on the field, give it +1/+1. Works really well. The card that comes right off the top of my head that works really well with this is Demonium Clash Devil, because he becomes a 4/5. Let's see, he's a 2/3. Yeah, so 4/5. So you recover 4 life along with all the other benefits and burn your opponent for 4 if you did play Infernal Orchestration. I like this card. You'll see shortly in a minute, but I don't run this card, but man, if I can find space for this, like, it feels like there's too many other competing options, but if I can find space, I would love to run Infernal Orchestration in my deck. So certainly, you know, give it a shot on your side. Hellblaze Demon is up next. It's a 2-cost 2/3 follower that on Fanfare you can discard a card to put the top card of your deck into your EX area, and if it's a follower, give it +1/+1. This deck does tend to run a lot of followers, so because it's much more follower centric than a lot of decks, I mean, minus, you know, draw spells, or if you run Razor Claw, I suppose, it's pretty much all followers. So if you're kind of trying to be more aggressive, you can kind of do the lotto jackpot of you know, discarding a card to try to get a buffed up follower in the EX area. This one I'd say is more optional. I certainly don't think this is more on the good side of cards, but if you kind of feel like gambling a little bit to get extra buffs, then, you know, by all means give it a shot. Next up is Old Faithful from the starter deck, Playful Necromancer. She's a 3-cost 3/3 that costs 1 to Evo, and on Evolve you can summon 3 ghost tokens. This plays more into aggro, but still I suppose has a little bit of control because you at least rush her into a follower to control the board a little better. But because of Sanguine in general just not having a lot of Evo cards, you know, Playful Necromancer really does not have a lot of competition for Evo deck space, and, you know, free 3 damage is like nothing to just kind of laugh at and ignore. It kind of sucks the ghosts disappear at the end of the turn, but hey, you know, what do you want? You got 3 free damage. Last is Skeleton Fighter. It's a 1-cost 2/2 follower that on Fanfare, if Sanguine's active for you, you give them +1/+1. Pretty decent stats for a 1-cost follower, so, you know, certainly something to think about, especially in more aggro-based decks. Funny enough, if you do like Infernal Orchestration with it, it becomes a 4/4 for 1, so that's kind of pretty crazy. But yeah, just, you know, it's kind of another option that you can grab with Fina as well. Now, the time you've all been waiting for, we take a look at the deck list. We've got 3 Wings of Lust, 3 Silverbolt Hunter, 2 Skeleton Fighter, 3 Ambling Wraith, 3 Disciple of Lust, 3 Fina, Dynamite Daredevil for you to be able to find the other 1 cost I just mentioned, 3 Zealot of Lust, 3 Antelope Pelt Warriors, 3 Valnric Omen of Lust, 3 Blood Moon, 3 Razory Claw, 3 Demonium Clash Devil, 3 Aragavi the Berserker, and 2 Dark General. The Blood Moon can search out both Antelope Pelt Warrior and Aragavi the Berserker in the deck. One thing you might notice is that's a great deck list. Where's the Evo deck? And that's the fun part. There is no Evo deck because nothing in this deck evolves. This deck is mainly meant to be like a really aggressive deck. Really, if you kind of build it any other way, you do start leaning more into control. So there's kind of like, in my mind, the sliding scale where it's like, you know, maybe on the left side you've got aggro and on the right side you've got control. I've tried to have this deck list kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, where not only does it show you kind of the opposite, the extreme one side of aggro, but by showing this deck list, if you, generally speaking, tend to choose other cards, you're just not going to be as aggro, and you're going to kind of lean more towards control, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but just kind of helps you give you a framework of, you know, starting from one extreme side kind of really gives you a dichotomy of, you know, the opposite. So but overall, I think, you know, you could still run things like the Moonrise Werewolf for control, but still be relatively aggro. But with this deck, you're definitely going to want to go first because the evil points are going to be essentially pointless. So yeah, it's kind of, I think it's like the first deck I've ever seen to not even run evos and still actually be cohesive. So that's something, I suppose. And that's about it. If you have any questions or anything, you can feel free to submit them in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hopefully this kind of gives you a good starting jump off point for what you want to do. The archetype in general is just very flexible in whatever you want to do, so I'm not going to say this is like the best way to build it. It is more like there is this way to build it, and then there's other ways to build it. So, you know, do what you want, have some fun with it. But that's pretty much all, guys, so hope you have a great day. Bye.